"You're useless. Go home," my boss Amelia said to me just before an important business meeting overseas. I had come to China specifically for this meeting, leaving my work in the States, but I couldn't say anything back. Amelia was the CEO's daughter, and no one in the company had more power than she did. No one dared to defy her. Just then, the CEO of our Chinese business partner appeared and said something unbelievable. "If he is leaving, the $300 million contract is off." Amelia was completely confused. Soon after, she learned my true identity. "My name is Ethan Harris. I recently turned 47 and work for a food manufacturer that does business overseas. Since joining as a new graduate, I've built a decent career and am well liked by my juniors and subordinates. In this job, trust is everything, so I've always tried to be sincere and focused on expanding my network. As a result, I've secured contracts both domestically and internationally. My professional life seemed to be going well, but it suddenly came crashing down when the CEO's daughter, Amelia Cook, joined the company. Amelia is 32 years old and had never worked as a full-time employee before. The CEO decided to bring her into the company, despite her lack of skills, just because she's his daughter. She was given a good position and entrusted with significant responsibilities. At first, it was nerve-wracking, but recently, Amelia seemed to have gotten used to the work, and everyone started entrusting her with more tasks. However, there was one major issue. Amelia was condescending to everyone. "It's normal to move aside when I come by," she said. This was my first conversation with Amelia. I was about to buy a meal ticket in the cafeteria when she suddenly put her hand on my shoulder from behind, pulling me back forcefully. It took me a moment to understand what had happened, but Amelia needed to be prioritized at all times. When I talked to my colleagues, they said they'd had similar experiences. This is how Amelia held absolute power within the company. Moreover, because she was the CEO's daughter, no one could criticize her. I usually worked on different tasks from Amelia and rarely had any interaction with her. But one day I was asked to accompany her on a business trip. The business meeting was with a Chinese partner, but Amelia apparently wasn't very good at Chinese. That's why I was chosen as her interpreter and assistant. I had hardly interacted with Amelia before, and suddenly being asked to join her on an overseas business trip made me very nervous. I was worried about what would happen if I ended up on her bad side. Amelia not only held grudges against people, but also harassed those she didn't like, so I thought I should avoid drawing her attention. But I made a mistake right from the start. "Hey, why are our seats next to each other? This is unacceptable," Amelia said when we boarded the plane to China. Normally, employees book business class, but this time I had reserved first class to accommodate Amelia. I thought the semi-private first-class seats would offer privacy, but she still didn't want to sit next to me. "I apologize. I'll check if there are any other available seats," I said to the flight attendant, but there were no other available seats. When I told Amelia, she said something outrageous. "Then just downgrade your seat to business class." "You mean?" "Yeah, it's better than me feeling uncomfortable." Luckily, there was one seat available in business class. It's unprecedented to downgrade without a special reason, and the flight attendant confirmed multiple times. But I couldn't risk making Amelia angrier. Reluctantly, I moved to business class for the flight to China. Before long, we arrived in China. The long flight had left both Amelia and me exhausted. "Make sure you wake me up on time tomorrow." "Understood. Good night," Amelia said as she locked herself in her hotel room. I headed to mine. If only I had stayed in first class, I wouldn't be this tired. But I couldn't argue with the CEO's daughter. Once the meeting was over, I could go back to the States. I thought about treating myself to something nice after the meeting. I focused on getting through the meeting with that in mind. "Amelia, we need to leave now or we'll be late." "I know, but it takes time for a woman to get ready in the morning." "I understand, but being late to a first meeting is unacceptable." "Be quiet. I'll be ready soon. Just wait a bit longer." I had woken her up on time, but Amelia didn't get up at all. After repeatedly ringing the intercom and calling her, she finally woke up, but she was slow to get ready. I knew it took time for women to prepare, but being late for a meeting was unacceptable. After several attempts to hurry her, we finally made it on time. This is why I hate men. Amelia kept complaining about me on the way to the meeting, but I had to prioritize the meeting, even if she disliked me. However, as soon as we arrived at the client's office and were shown into the room, Amelia said something outrageous. "You're useless. Go home." "What? What are you talking about? The meeting is about to start. I can speak Chinese and the other side understands some English, right? That's what I've heard. But just in case, it's true that Eric Lee, who is coming to the meeting, has experience living in America. So it might have been possible to conduct the meeting in English. However, he likes hearing comprehensive explanations in Chinese. So I was requested to accompany Amelia since the client requested it. I think it would be better if I joined the meeting. I've realized after spending time with you that you're completely useless." "Useless? What exactly makes you think that?" "Everything. Everything about you screams useless." This was completely unreasonable. The real issue was that I displeased Amelia and she didn't want me around. But I strongly doubted Amelia's ability to manage the meeting alone successfully. I was not sure about her Chinese proficiency, and it also depended on the client's understanding. "Just go back to America, though I doubt you have anything to do there either." "What are you talking about? Someone as useless as you should work in a factory." As I contemplated how to persuade Amelia, I decided it was futile. No matter what I said, it was useless. It was better to get out of there before she became more snarky. My answer was to walk away. "All right then. Good luck with the meeting." "I don't need you to tell me that," Amelia said as I packed my things. Hearing Amelia's voice behind me, the door suddenly opened. Standing there was likely Eric Carpenter. He had a slender build and tall stature, the epitome of a CEO from overseas. As Amelia and I were both captivated by Eric's appearance, we heard words that were hard to believe. "If he is leaving, the $300 million contract is off." I wondered if he was referring to me, but I'd never met Eric Lee before, not even spoken to him on the phone. Could he be mistaking me for someone else? "Excuse me, are you referring to Ethan?" "Yes, who else could it be?" "Are you sure you're not confusing him with someone else?" I was utterly baffled, having no recollection of any connection. However, Eric's next words triggered long-buried memories. "It's sad, have you really forgotten? We watched the ocean together." "The ocean?" "When I was in the depths of despair, you helped me. You took me to see the ocean." I racked my brain trying to recall the past, and a distant memory surfaced. It was during my university years, struggling with my studies. I found myself contemplating the harsh realities of life. There were times I felt like disappearing. I remember climbing a mountain, not really sure why, perhaps seeking solitude. On the mountain, I encountered a man. He was crouched on a bridge halfway up. "Excuse me, are you okay?" "Yes, I'm fine." Despite his foreign appearance, he spoke fluent English. He insisted he was fine, but his dark circles and gaunt cheeks told a different story. "This place is treacherous. Let's move somewhere safer." I helped him up and guided him to a nearby bench. From my backpack, I offered him some homemade hot coffee. "This is all I have, but you can have it if you like. I blended the coffee myself." "Thank you." The man weakly accepted the tea and drank it all in one gulp. Then he quietly began to cry. He didn't say anything, but it was clear he had been through something very painful. "I want to disappear from this world, but I can't find the courage to do so," he said as I gently rubbed his back. "I feel the same way. By the way, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Ethan Harris." "Ethan, I'm Eric." Eric then shared his story with me. He had come to learn about American culture, but found it hard to be accepted. The language barrier was more challenging than he had anticipated, making his life here very tough. To make matters worse, his parents, who had eagerly awaited his success, had passed away, plunging him into deep despair. "Life is tough, but there's happiness waiting at the end of the road," I said, repeating a cliché I had heard somewhere. It felt hypocritical, given I was in a similar state. Happiness, ah. I wonder when that will come. I know what you mean. How about we go see the ocean? I heard it's nearby. The ocean? It's been a while since I've seen one. I suppose it wouldn't hurt to see it one last time. Thus, we decided to visit the ocean. Honestly, it was a pretext to get Eric away from that place, but there really was an ocean nearby. I knew from the map that there was an ocean, but it was indeed a hidden gem. I never knew such a beautiful place existed in America. "It's so mystical," Eric remarked. For a while, we just watched the waves. We didn't talk, just stood side by side, gazing at the ocean. It felt like our past sorrows and thoughts were being washed away. After that, Eric and I parted ways without exchanging contact information, and we had no idea about each other's lives. "No way, you're the guy from back then. I'm glad to see you're doing well," Eric exclaimed when we met again. "Yeah, Ethan, you saved my life back then. But how did you recognize me?" "When I heard your name, I remembered. Actually, I specifically requested you. So that's why I was called to this meeting, even though I had no connection to Amelia. Now it all makes sense. Wait a minute, what's going on? How do you two know each other?" Amelia was completely confused and getting anxious. "He's an old friend. Anyway, is she your boss, Ethan?" "Well, yes. She's the CEO's daughter." "I see. It's unforgivable to treat the person who saved my life that way," Eric said, glaring sharply at Amelia. For someone who had never been reprimanded, that glare was more than enough. Amelia, who had been so confident earlier, now clenched her fists and looked away. "We don't have much time. Let's start the meeting. Amelia, is that okay with you?" Eric asked. "Yes," Amelia mumbled. As we tried to proceed with the meeting, Amelia was too intimidated to speak. In the end, it was just Eric and me handling the negotiations. "Ethan, if you are handling it, I'd be delighted to sign the contract." "I appreciate it, but that might be difficult." "I see. Then I'll talk to your CEO." Eric made a phone call and managed to make me the lead on the project. "See, now it's all set. I can't believe it. How did you make it happen so easily? What kind of magic did you use?" "I have a good relationship with the CEO. I helped the company during a tough time. Actually, our company was on the brink of bankruptcy once. I heard that at that time, a foreign company suddenly invested and saved us. I had no idea that company was Eric's. I told him about this situation, too, so everything should be fine." "What do you mean?" "I'm talking about your boss. Good leaders value their subordinates." "Wait, did you tell my father about this?" Realizing her misdeeds were known to the CEO, Amelia began to sweat. Even as the CEO's daughter, she was afraid of her father. After we returned to America, as expected, we were summoned by Mr. Cook, the CEO. "I've heard everything, Amelia. What's going on?" "It's a misunderstanding. I didn't do anything." "If you did nothing, there wouldn't be a risk of losing a $300 million contract." Mr. Cook knew everything, so it was pointless for Amelia to deny it. Yet she still claimed her innocence. "He's trying to frame me, believe me." "Frame you? Why would Ethan do such a thing?" "Because he wants my position, apparently. I was trying to get promoted by framing Amelia. Of course, it was all a lie. Mr. Cook likely saw through her deceit. He didn't believe her at all. Ignoring her protests and lack of remorse, he said something shocking. "I understand. You do. I knew it. You're fired." "What? What do you mean?" Mr. Cook declared Amelia's termination and told her to write her resignation letter on the spot. "I thought you would grow in this company, but I was wrong." Wait a minute, you can't be serious. I am. You'll get your severance pay. How am I supposed to live without my salary? It seemed Amelia was more concerned about losing her paycheck than getting fired. She likely earned more than when she was a temp, so losing that income would be tough. But she could find another job, though it wouldn't be the same. Understanding this, she desperately protested. Living expenses. You're an adult. Figure it out yourself. You're abandoning me. I've covered for you, but I can't anymore. Even other employees are complaining about you. Upon inquiry, Mr. Cook found out that multiple employees had anonymously reported issues with Amelia. They were people who interacted with her regularly, not just one person. Despite his efforts to protect her, he had run out of options. That's all. Leave now. No, what's going to happen to my luxurious life? Ignoring Amelia's despondent state, I left the CEO's office. Sometime later, Amelia resigned after being told she was fired. She lost her spirit and stopped yelling at people around her. Because of that, everyone found it much easier to work, and the atmosphere at the office improved significantly. Communication among employees became more active. As for the deal with Eric's company, I was officially assigned as the main contact. However, since I couldn't handle everything alone, there were several meetings with my superiors involved. In the end, the $300 million deal was successfully finalized. Now, the snacks we sell would be featured in Eric's stores. American snacks are very popular overseas, so they were bound to become a hit. Not only did it become easier to work, but I was also able to contribute significantly to the company. If it hadn't been for Eric, I might still be labeled as incompetent. A while after that, I overheard some gossip among the employees. Hey, did you hear about the CEO's daughter? No, what happened? She quit about a month ago, right? Yeah, well, I heard she started working at a factory. Really? She used to say factory work was for the incompetent. She said the same thing to me. Amelia used to boast that factory work was something anyone could do, but that's not true. It requires stamina and patience to stand for long hours, and some tasks need skill. I heard from someone who went to that factory that she was being yelled at. She looked down on everyone, but now she's the one struggling. I left before hearing the rest of their conversation. Listening to gossip wouldn't do any good. Even if I disliked her, speaking ill of others was against my principles. A year passed and Eric came to America. It's been a while since we went to the sea, but things look different now, Eric remarked. Back then, I was lost in my life. Today, I plan to treat Eric to some delicious food, I replied. He said he wanted to eat my favorite food, so we were on our way to my favorite bagel shop. I remember. You gave me a bagel back then. Did I? I had only coffee and bagels with me when we went to the ocean. I shared bagels with Eric. Looking back, that coffee and bagels changed our lives. Climbing that mountain on a whim turned out to be the best decision. Watching Eric smile as he enjoyed my favorite bagels, I couldn't help but feel grateful.